Darius Mitchell stood in the doorway of the executive office at 7:47 p.m., watching his boss Victoria Chen pack her designer bag with the kind of precision that made six figures look effortless. She glanced up, catching him mid-observation, and asked the question that had been whispered through Harper & Klein Financial for 18 months. "Why won't you date, Darius? Everyone's noticed." "Not once in 3 years." He froze, his hand tightening on the doorframe. For a moment, Victoria thought she saw something crack behind those careful eyes. Not anger, not defensiveness, just a weariness so profound it seemed to age him 10 years in the fluorescent light. Before we continue, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give it a like, and share it with someone who'd love this story too. You really want to know? She nodded, her heart suddenly pounding, completely unaware that his answer would shatter everything she thought she understood about sacrifice, about love, about the promises people make when the world isn't watching. Victoria Chen had built her career on reading people. At 34, she was the youngest senior partner at Harper & Klein Financial, a boutique investment firm in Philadelphia's Rittenhouse Square district. Her corner office overlooked the tree-lined streets where old money and new ambition collided daily. She had learned to spot hunger, deception, and weakness within the first 5 minutes of any meeting. But Darius Mitchell confused her. His file was perfect. Too perfect. 3 years of flawless performance as a senior analyst. Client retention rates in the top 2% of the entire firm. Not a single error in any quarterly report. Recommendations for team lead positions that he declined 3 times. Victoria had called him into her office on a Tuesday morning, exactly at 9. He arrived at 8:59, neither early nor late, and sat across from her with the kind of stillness that suggested he'd learned to wait a long time for things that mattered. "Mr. Mitchell." She kept her tone professionally neutral. "I've reviewed your file. You're one of our strongest performers. Help me understand why you've turned down every leadership opportunity we've offered." Darius met her eyes without flinching. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I need to leave at 5:15 every day. Management positions require more hours. It's that simple." Victoria leaned forward, genuinely puzzled. In her world, ambition was oxygen. Everyone wanted more money, more power, more recognition. Most people would sacrifice anything for these opportunities. "Why don't you want to advance?" "Not everyone measures success the same way, Ms. Chen." He paused. "Some of us have already found what we're working toward." The answer frustrated her. It was cryptic, almost evasive, and it stuck in her mind like a splinter she couldn't quite remove. What Victoria didn't know was that someone else had been watching Darius too. Someone with considerably less noble intentions. Preston Ashford III was everything Darius wasn't: third-generation wealth, Yale-educated, connected to half the city's power brokers through blood or marriage. He joined Harper & Klein 6 months ago as a senior partner, brought in by the board to modernize operations, which really meant slashing costs and maximizing profits regardless of who got hurt. Preston had noticed Darius immediately. Not because of his work, Preston barely glanced at performance metrics, but because of what Darius represented: a threat to the old boy network Preston was trying to rebuild in his own image. Their first real collision happened during the monthly partners meeting in September. Preston stood at the head of the conference table, his Tom Ford suit probably worth more than Darius made in a month, presenting his optimization plan. "We need to eliminate dead weight," Preston announced, clicking to a slide that showed employee productivity metrics. "Anyone not billing at least 60 hours a week is fundamentally stealing from this firm." He let his gaze drift pointedly to Darius, who sat quietly at the far end of the table. "Take Mitchell here. Great numbers, sure. But leaves every day at 5:15 on the dot. Never attends evening client events. Never available for weekend emergencies." Preston's smile was shark-like. "Makes you wonder about his commitment, doesn't it?" The room went silent. Victoria, sitting 2 seats away, felt her jaw tighten. Darius didn't react. He simply looked at Preston with those calm, unreadable eyes and said nothing. "No defense." Preston pushed. No explanation for why you treat this place like a 9-to-5 factory job while the rest of us are building something. I do my job, Darius said quietly. My work speaks for itself. Your work? Preston laughed, and it was an ugly sound. Your work is adequate. Your attitude is the problem. This firm runs on relationships, on trust, on being there when it matters. You can't build that if you're running out the door every day like the building's on fire. Victoria watched Darius's hands, resting flat on the table. They didn't move. Didn't clench. Nothing. If you can't commit fully, Preston continued, maybe you're in the wrong profession. Maybe you'd be happier somewhere less demanding. As Darius walked out of that conference room, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and for just a second, Victoria saw his mask slip, raw fear flickering across his face before he controlled it. Whatever that message said, it changed something. He walked faster toward the elevator, leaving early for the first time in 3 years. And Victoria realized something was very, very wrong. Victoria Chen had built her career on calculated risks and careful analysis. But what she did next surprised even her. She started watching Darius Mitchell. Not in a creepy way, she told herself, just observing. She noticed patterns she'd been too busy to see before. He ate lunch at his desk every single day. Never joined the groups that gathered in the break room or the nearby sandwich shops. When co-workers asked about his weekend, he deflected with practiced ease, turning questions back on them before they realized he'd revealed nothing. His desk held no photographs. No personal items. No hints at who he became after 5:15. The first real crack in his armor appeared on a Thursday afternoon. Victoria was walking to her car when she spotted Darius in the parking garage, phone pressed to his ear. She slowed her pace, not quite eavesdropping, but not hurrying away either. I'll be there in 20. His voice was different than she'd ever heard it, soft, worried, tender. How is she today? A pause. Did she eat? Good. That's good. Tell her daddy's coming. He ended the call and stood there for a moment, his head bowed, gathering himself. Then he drove away, never noticing Victoria standing 3 rows over, her car keys forgotten in her hand. Back in her office the next morning, Victoria did something she wasn't proud of. She asked Paula in HR to pull Darius Mitchell's emergency contact information. Just updating our files, she lied. Victoria spent her lunch hour researching Morningside. It was a long-term care facility in West Philadelphia specializing in patients with severe neurological conditions, comas, and persistent vegetative states. The kind of place where families didn't give up hope. Her hands trembled as she closed her browser. Preston Ashford wasn't finished with Darius Mitchell. If anything, Darius's silence during that meeting had only fueled Preston's contempt. 2 weeks later, Harper & Klein hosted its annual investor gala at the Bellevue Hotel, a black-tie affair where 6-figure deals happened between champagne toasts and calculated small talk. Attendance was mandatory for all senior staff. Darius requested an exemption in writing. Preston denied it personally, copying the entire executive team on his response. Mr. Mitchell, your continued refusal to participate in firm culture is becoming untenable. Attendance at the investor gala is not optional. If you cannot commit to being a team player, perhaps we need to reassess your position here. Attendance is mandatory. 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. minimum. Victoria read the email and felt something she rarely experienced, genuine anger. She called Darius into her office that afternoon. The gala, she said without preamble. Preston's being unreasonable. I can talk to the other partners. It's fine, Darius interrupted quietly. I'll figure something out. You shouldn't have to. Ms. Chen. He looked at her directly, and she saw something in his expression that stopped her cold. I appreciate the concern. But I'll handle it. There was a finality in his tone that left no room for argument. That evening, Victoria drove past Morningside Extended Care Facility. She didn't plan to stop. She just wanted to understand. Through the front windows, she saw him, Darius Mitchell, sitting in the lobby, his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. A little girl stood beside him, her small hand on his back, comforting him. The sight hit Victoria like a physical blow. What had she stumbled into? And more importantly, what was Preston about to destroy? Saturday arrived. Darius showed up to the Bellevue at 6 p.m. sharp, wearing a suit that was clearly borrowed or bought secondhand but fit him well enough. He looked exhausted. Preston noticed immediately. Well, Mitchell actually showed up. Preston's voice carried across the marble lobby, drawing attention. Thought you might skip out on us. Again. Darius said nothing, heading toward the reception area. Preston followed, his date, a socialite whose family owned half of the main line, trailing behind with a bemused expression. You know what I've been wondering, Mitchell? Preston raised his voice deliberately. Other colleagues turned to watch. What's so important that you can't ever stick around? Got a second job? Working retail somewhere? Preston. Victoria appeared at Darius's elbow, her tone sharp. Let it go. No, I'm genuinely curious, Preston pressed. Because if you're moonlighting somewhere, that's a conflict of interest. Firm policy. We'd need to know about it. Darius's jaw tightened. I'm not moonlighting. Then what? Secret family? Wife you haven't told anyone about? Girlfriend who demands you home by 6 like she owns you? The words hit harder than Preston knew. I have responsibilities, Darius said quietly. That's all you need to know. Responsibilities. Preston laughed, loud and mocking. We all have responsibilities, Mitchell. The difference is, some of us are professionals about it. Some of us don't let our personal drama interfere with our careers. Victoria watched Darius's hands clench at his sides. Watched him take a slow, controlled breath. Watched him make a decision. Excuse me, Darius said. I need some air. He walked away, and Preston turned to his colleagues with a smug grin. See what I mean? No backbone. No commitment. How did we ever hire him? Victoria followed Darius outside. She found him on the hotel's terrace, overlooking Broad Street. The city lights sparkled below, indifferent to human drama. He's a bastard, Victoria said, joining him at the railing. Everyone knows it. Doesn't matter. Darius's voice was flat. It matters to me. He glanced at her, surprised. I saw you, Victoria admitted. At Morningside. Last week. I wasn't stalking you, I needed to understand why you. She trailed off, realizing how invasive it sounded. Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then, her name is Imani. My wife. 4 years ago, she was in a car accident on I-76. Drunk driver ran a red light at the University City exit. She was 7 minutes from home. Victoria's breath caught. The doctors said she'd never wake up. Persistent vegetative state. Her parents held a memorial service. Moved on. But she's still breathing, Ms. Chen. Still here. And I made her a promise. What promise? In sickness and in health. For better or worse. Until death do us part. His voice cracked slightly. She hasn't died. She's just waiting. And I won't abandon her while she waits. And your daughter? Zara. She was 5 when it happened. She draws pictures for her mom. We visit every single evening. We read to Imani, talk to her, tell her about our day. Zara needs to know her mother is still here, even if she can't hug her back. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. That's why you leave at 5:15. That's why. He looked at her directly. And why I won't date. To me, it would be cheating. Not legally, maybe not technically, but to the vows I made? It would be a betrayal. I won't do that to her. Not while she's still breathing. Before Victoria could respond, Preston appeared in the doorway, clearly drunk, clearly angry. Having a nice heart-to-heart. His smile was vicious. How touching. Mitchell, you're done. I'm recommending your termination Monday morning. Lack of commitment, poor culture fit, take your pick. You're finished here. He turned and walked away, leaving Darius standing frozen, the weight of 4 years suddenly threatening to crush him completely. Victoria Chen didn't sleep that weekend. She spent Saturday night reviewing every piece of documentation she could find on Darius Mitchell's work. Every client interaction. Every deal he'd closed. Every analysis he'd written. The picture that emerged was stunning. Darius hadn't just been good at his job, he'd been exceptional. 3 major clients had specifically requested him after their initial consultations. 2 competitor firms had tried to poach him in the past year alone, offering significant salary increases. But more than that, she found something else. Something that changed everything. Buried in an old client file from 2 years ago, Victoria found a name that made her stop cold: Mitchell Financial Consulting Group. She ran a corporate search. Mitchell Financial Consulting was a boutique advisory firm that had operated in Philadelphia from 2015 to 2019. The founder and CEO, Darius E. Mitchell. Victoria dug deeper. The firm had been small but prestigious, specializing in portfolio management for high-net-worth clients. Annual revenue in the 7 figures. Darius had built it from nothing, had been on track to become one of the city's youngest self-made millionaires. Then, in late 2019, the firm had quietly dissolved. All clients transferred to other advisors. All assets liquidated. The timing matched exactly with Imani's accident. Victoria pulled up the dissolution documents. At the bottom, in small print, proceeds from liquidation donated to Morningside Extended Care Facility Long-Term Patient Fund. Darius Mitchell had given up everything, his company, his wealth, his entire future, to ensure his wife would always have care. And then he'd taken a regular job, with regular hours, so he could be there for her and their daughter every single day. Preston Ashford had been mocking a man who had already sacrificed more than Preston could possibly comprehend. Victoria walked into the executive partners meeting Monday at 9 a.m. with a folder under her arm and a plan that would either save her career or end it. Preston sat at the head of the table, smugly confident. "First order of business," he announced. "I'm recommending immediate termination of Darius Mitchell. Grounds: cultural misfit, lack of commitment, and..." "No," Victoria interrupted. Preston blinked. "Excuse me?" "No. You're not firing him. And if you try, I'll make sure every person in this room knows exactly who you're trying to destroy." She opened her folder and began distributing documents. Darius Mitchell founded Mitchell Financial Consulting in 2015. In 4 years, he built it into one of the most respected boutique firms in Philadelphia. He had celebrity clients, professional athletes, executives. He was on track to be worth 8 figures by age 40. The partners stared at the papers, confused. Then his wife was in an accident. And Darius made a choice. He liquidated everything: his company, his investments, his future, and donated the proceeds to ensure his wife would have lifetime care. Then he took a 9-to-5 job so he could visit her every evening and raise their 9-year-old daughter alone. She turned to Preston. "You've been mocking a man who sacrificed everything for love. Who chose family over fortune. Who keeps promises even when no one's watching. And you think he lacks commitment?" Preston's face had gone white. "Furthermore," Victoria continued, 3 of our largest clients specifically requested Darius. The Hartwell Foundation. The Dennison Trust. The Morrison Family Office. I contacted them over the weekend. All 3 said they'd consider moving their portfolios if we terminate him. That's $48 million in managed assets walking out the door. She let that sink in. "So here's what's going to happen, Preston. You're going to apologize to Darius. You're going to stop harassing him about his hours. And you're going to recognize that commitment doesn't mean sacrificing your humanity at the altar of ambition." The senior founding partner, Gerald Harper, cleared his throat. He was 73 years old, rarely spoke in meetings anymore, but when he did, people listened. "Victoria's right," he said quietly. "I knew Darius Mitchell before he came here. I knew what he gave up. I've been waiting to see if anyone else would figure it out." He looked directly at Preston. "Son, you're the one who doesn't fit our culture. Clear your desk. You're done." That evening, Victoria did something she'd been planning since Saturday night. She drove to Morningside Extended Care Facility. She found Darius in room 127, sitting beside a hospital bed, reading aloud from a book. A little girl, Zara, sat on the other side, coloring quietly. Victoria knocked softly on the doorframe. Darius looked up, surprised. "Ms. Chen." "I heard about Preston," she said. "I wanted to make sure you knew, he's gone." The board voted unanimously. Relief flickered across his face. "Thank you for what you said in that meeting. It was the truth." Victoria paused. "But that's not why I'm here." She pulled an envelope from her bag. "I established a fund. Anonymous donors, myself and a few others who believe in what you're doing. It's enough to cover Imani's care for the next 10 years. Maybe longer, depending on how we invest it." Darius stared at the envelope, clearly too stunned to speak. "You shouldn't have to choose between keeping your promise and keeping your job," Victoria said softly. "This way, you don't have to." Zara looked up from her coloring. "Are you Daddy's friend?" Victoria smiled. "I think so. I hope so." "Good," Zara said seriously. "He needs friends." As Victoria turned to leave, something extraordinary happened. Imani's hand, resting on the bed beside Darius, twitched. Just slightly. Just enough. Darius went completely still. "Did you see?" It happened again. A deliberate movement. Imani's fingers curled slowly around his palm. "Imani!" Darius's voice broke. "Baby, can you hear me?" The heart monitor's rhythm changed. Stronger. More responsive. Zara jumped up. "Mommy? Mommy, it's me." Victoria backed away, giving them space, her hand over her mouth. She'd witnessed something sacred, a small miracle earned through years of unwavering devotion. Imani Mitchell didn't wake up overnight. Recovery was slow, incremental, frustrating. But she was responding. Her doctors used words like unprecedented and remarkable, and "we've never seen anything like this." Darius continued his routine, work until 5:15, then straight to Morningside. But now, Imani's eyes tracked him when he entered the room. Her fingers squeezed back when he held her hand. Last week, she'd whispered his name. Victoria had made other changes too. She restructured the firm's culture, implemented flexible schedules, created a fund to support employees dealing with family medical crises, made it clear that Harper & Klein valued whole humans, not just profitable machines. And she started leaving at 6 p.m. herself. Started visiting her own parents more often. Started questioning what she'd been sacrificing in pursuit of success. Victoria found Darius in the break room one afternoon, making coffee. She'd asked him to come by her office when he had a minute. "You wanted to see me?" he asked. "The senior partners met this morning," Victoria said. "We'd like to offer you something. Partner track. Your own team. But with conditions, you keep your 5:15 schedule. No evening obligations unless you specifically agree. And we'd like you to help us build a program for employees dealing with similar situations." Darius was quiet for a moment. "Why?" "Because you showed us what real commitment looks like," Victoria said simply. "And because Preston was right about one thing, this firm runs on trust. I trust you more than anyone I've ever worked with." She paused. "Also, Imani's awake now. Not fully, not yet, but she's coming back. And when she does, she's going to need you to have built a future worth coming back to. Let us help you do that." Darius's eyes grew bright. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Say you'll let people support you for once. Say you'll build something that honors what you've been through." "Yes," he said quietly. "Yeah. Okay." Victoria Chen stood at the window of her office, watching the Philadelphia sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and amber. On her desk sat a framed photograph, a gift from Darius. It showed him, Imani, sitting in a wheelchair but awake, smiling, and Zara, all three of them together at last. The inscription on the frame read, "Some promises don't have expiration dates. Thank you for believing." The Mitchell family. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. Driven, successful, but measuring everything by the wrong scale. She thought about how one man's quiet devotion had taught her more about strength than any of her professional victories ever had. Her phone buzzed. A text from Darius. Imani said her first full sentence today. She asked if you'd come to dinner next week. Zara's already planning the menu. Fair warning, it involves a lot of mac and cheese. Victoria smiled and texted back, I'll bring dessert. She gathered her things and left her office at 5:30, early by her old standards, but right on time by the new ones. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere across town, Darius Mitchell was reading to his wife in a hospital room. A little girl was drawing another picture for the gallery on the wall. And a woman who had been vegetative for 4 years was slowly, miraculously, finding her way back home. Because one man had refused to give up. Had refused to measure love by convenience. Had understood that some promises don't care about deadlines or billable hours or corner offices. They just ask you to show up. Every day. No matter what. And sometimes, if you're faithful to those promises long enough, the universe remembers. Sometimes, love wins. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear borrowed suits and leave work at 5:15 every day to keep a promise no one else believes in anymore. They are the single dads who choose presence over promotion. The devoted spouses who refuse to call it quits. The ordinary people who do extraordinary things when no one's watching. This is their story. This is his story. And maybe, just maybe, it's the story we all need to remember when life gets hard and quitting looks easier than staying. Because some promises don't have expiration dates. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. We tell stories about people who choose love over everything else, because those are the stories that matter most.